Hello and welcome. So today, yet again, we've got yet another really nice free plugin for you. Today's offering is the TDR Molot compressor. Now, it is described as being a character compressor, and that it certainly is. It really does add an awful lot of its own sound. There are quite a lot of different controls on the compressor here, and which we're going to be going through. But the great thing is, it just sounds great. I really like this compressor. Let's have a closer look at what we got. Starting in the top left, we've got a high pass filter, which is of course in the side chain. This goes from 40 Hz all the way up to 260 Hz and everything in between. Now this is quite an interesting one here. You have a switch here for turning it on and off. So what this does is this switches off the high pass filter in the side chain and converts it basically into a low shelf EQ in the side chain. And so this low shelf EQ has a fixed cut of -3 dB. And you can set your turnover frequency using the same dial as the high pass. So interesting stuff. Down below this we have our threshold, which of course sets the point at which the compressor starts to compress. And then we go further down from here and we've got a knee control. When this is set to 0, this is a soft knee compressor. And at the other extreme, when it's set to 1, it then becomes a hard knee compressor, and of course it's variable in between. Next to this we have our attack control. This goes from 0.1 of a millisecond and it goes all the way up to 0.6 of a second. I'm going to pass this one for the moment. After this we have a release control. The release goes from 5 milliseconds all the way up to 2 seconds. And in between our attack and release here, we have this kind of mode selector. It's got 3 main modes, alpha, beta and sigma. Now this does affect, or can affect, how both your attack and release actually react to the incoming signal. Now it's in alpha mode at the moment, and in alpha mode the compressor reacts immediately. The second mode is beta, which is where I have it now. And this is quite interesting as well. This introduces what they refer to as a dual stage release circuit, and this is said to help prevent overcompression. And finally in sigma mode, the attack is delayed, so this allows transients through almost untouched. All the way up here we have our ratio, which goes from 1.1 to 1 up to 10.9 to 1. By default it is set to 4 to 1. Of course we have our makeup gain. Inevitably when we use a compressor we have a drop in volume, and this makes up for the loss in volume. Below here we have a dry mix. So you can introduce a certain amount or percentage of the unprocessed signal, which of course gives you parallel compression all within one plugin. We've got a bypass button over here. It's obvious what this does. It's also obvious when it's been engaged, as it grays everything out, or I suppose it greens everything out. Now below here we have a delta control. Now if you haven't come across this before, it is a very handy thing to have on a plugin, or on a compressor plugin. Basically when you engage it, you can hear which part of your signal is actually being compressed. So yet again, this can help you set up your compressor. So you're compressing the parts of the signal that you want to compress and leaving alone the parts that you don't want to compress. And finally down in this bottom section we've got an output gain. So the eagle-eyed among you may be looking and going, well, is that not the same as the makeup gain? The idea behind this is when you're using Molotok as a parallel compressor, this dictates the final output of the whole plugin. Going up to the top here, we can choose between mono and stereo operation. By default it's in stereo. Next button to this, we can have our internal sidechain, which of course is the default, but we can also switch it for external sidechain. And then the final button up here, we've got 3 settings. Precise gives you the highest quality but uses the most CPU. Next we have eco, which I presume means economical. This uses less CPU, but it also gives you just that little bit less quality. And finally, live. This is the best setting to say if you want to use it, say, to record live through it. Finally, we have our gain reduction meter. Now, I just want to point out a little oddity about the gain reduction meter. Basically, the meter isn't accurate. So when I was testing the plugin, it could be showing me, say, 1 dB of gain reduction. But in actual fact, I was getting somewhere in the region of 3 or 4 dB of gain reduction. Instead of using that to judge how much gain reduction you're getting, do keep an eye on your track meters instead. They're going to be more accurate. Okay, it's time to stop talking and start having a listen to what exactly it can do. So today's audio is my good old favourite drum loop. Let's have a quick listen so we know what we've got. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to do a couple of demonstrations here. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to go for just some basic dynamic control. The loudest parts of the loop really are actually the snares. So I'm just going to try and push down the snares a bit and then use a little bit of makeup gain. I'm going to use my delta control this time to listen in and make sure it's just the snares that I'm catching. I'm also going to use it in alpha mode, which is the setting where the compressor reacts the fastest. Let's have a listen. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to turn off the sidechain high-pass filter and just set the dial to 40 Hz. Keep it out of the way, really. Okay, let's go for it. Even with just a small amount of compression, 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction, a little bit of makeup gain, and this actually sounds really nice. Let's hear it before and after and judge for yourself. Going to start with the compressor engaged. As I'm playing back, I'll switch it in and out. Does a really nice job of just taming in the dynamics of those snares and thickening things up quite nicely. Okay, let's reset the compressor and let's give it another go. So this time I'm going to go for something of an effect. I'm going to go for a little bit of a squash. So I'm going to set the mode to beta, which is this one in the middle. So I'm going to take advantage of this dual release circuit. And this time I'm going to squash down on everything, so kicks as well. Let's go for that. Ah, that sounds so good. That gives you quite a really big, fat sound. I really, really like the sound of that one. Really brings out the sound of the room that it was recorded in as well. Sounds absolutely great. Finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it set exactly as it is. But as I'm playing back this time, I'm going to switch between beta and sigma. So now beta gives us this dual release type thing going on. Sigma, on the other hand, reacts just that little bit slower, thus allowing more of the transient through, so a little bit more of the punch through. And I think the difference between these two modes in this particular situation is pretty obvious. But listen, have a listen for yourself. I'd say a listen in particular for the snare. Okay, I'm going to start in beta mode and just watch here. I'm going to switch from one to the other. Okay, let's go for that. I think you can probably hear there's quite a difference between the two modes in this particular situation anyway. So when you're using the compressor, do experiment with these three different modes. See which one suits your situation best. And there you have it. As always, I will leave you a link in the description so that you can download it and give it a spin for yourself. And of course, as always, I'm going to be giving you a link for my courses as well, but this time with a difference. This time I'm going to be linking you through to my new website, which I'm really loving the look of. So if you buy my courses on the courses page on my new website, what you will get is the best current price that I can offer you. So why not check it out? Yet again, thank you for watching. I appreciate you being here. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.